Okay, Ryan, deep breaths. Oh my God. It's time for another episode of the Aiming Five Hole podcast. I just want you to catch your breath, and now you want to react.
Okay, so in case it's not obvious, we're starting the recording of this a day late because we wanted to catch Game 7 before.
We had to wait till second round fully completed, so timing worked out.
So the defibrillator worked. My heart restarted. It's been a crazy 3 hours. I'll put it to you that way. I'd love to say the right team won, but
wow,
I'll just say that my team won.
yeah. Hey, the Canadian team won. It's good to see a Canadian team moving on.
Yeah.
I feel badly for Buffalo because they definitely outplayed you for the those second two periods where Buffalo was just bringing it on. Dobish stood on his head again.
Yeah.
They had 22 blocked shots. But wow.
Yeah,
you were giving up though. You were texting me going, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about this. I told you just positive thoughts. But what's better than Game 7 OT? How much?
I almost prefer it when I don't have
Maybe
a
I'm
dog
having
in
more
the
fun
fight.
because it's not necessarily my team. I'm rooting for the Habs right now, but I'm a little at ease because if Buffalo had won, I would have been happy for Buffalo. I would have gotten up tomorrow morning and been okay. Let's root for Buffalo going forward. But I'm happy for you. I'm happy
Thank
for
you.
the Canadian team. I'm
Thank
rooting for.
you.
I still got my hat on, and now you have to come to Carolina. We got to watch a game in Carolina.
Yeah, well, I'll start looking at flights if you can get us tickets to a game
I
in
got you
Carolina.
tickets. I'll get you tickets. There's not a problem with that.
Okay, that's great to hear.
So
Okay,
next Friday is Game 5.
so here is my reaction. Okay, my reaction is the Canadians didn't show up the last two periods of this game. I've never seen a team turn over the puck so much in their defensive zone. And these were not it wasn't so much that they were being forechecked to death. They were just making dumb plays along the sideboards and just turning pucks over and over again. That, and as I texted you, I don't know how many times during the course of the game, they were giving up the blue line just way too easily.
Yeah, they looked tonight like a young team, and they were squeezing their sticks a little too much. They looked very tight in their own end, couldn't get the puck out, just getting jammed in their own zone, making sloppy plays coming out of their own zone.
But that said, they were the better team in OT.
They were. I texted you like 10 minutes into that overtime. I said, where was this in the second two periods? Like if they had played like they did in the first 10 minutes of that OT in the second and third period, this game wouldn't have been in question.
Yeah.
It would have been a 2-0, 3-1, whatever game, but they definitely outplayed them, which also worried me because we saw in the Pittsburgh-Philadelphia series in that series winning game where Pittsburgh was all over Philadelphia.
All over them in the OT, yeah.
And then Philly went down and scored, and I was thinking, going, oh my God, this is just feeling like deja vu here, that this is going to happen. And then Tage Thompson went down on that play and toe drag, and I went, oh my God, this is going to be ugly. But they got to get pucks to the net. They got to start shooting the puck more. Like they just can't be looking for the cleanest play anymore because that just isn't going to be available against Carolina.
No. And to beat Freddie Anderson, you're going to need a lot of deflections, a lot of screens in front. You need some greasy goals.
Yeah, and you can look no further. Like you've got to give it to the Habs, being a young team. Alex Newhook, like, come on. You said it I think before this series, he's been their best player. Other than Dobish, he's been their best player. Game in and game out, just clutch. What's that? His third or fourth game-winning goal.
Crazy.
And they won this series with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky being -20 in this series.
Yeah, it's
so they can't do that in the next series against Carolina.
No, and we'll talk about
it in a second. The other thing, to get to Buffalo fans, because the other, if they're going to look for, hey, what happened here? This series could have gone either way. We called 7 to begin with, but Alex Tuch, he had 4 goals and 7 points and +8 in round 1. No goals, no points, -9 in series two against
He
Habs.
he had a tough series, and I
He
think
had a bunch of chances, but he just couldn't do anything. He just
yeah.
couldn't get anything out there.
Well, Ray Ferraro had it right. I mean, he was saying that most of Tuck's shots were coming from the outside, and
Yeah.
he just wasn't getting inside like he normally does.
But what a
Um,
different series this was from
oh
the
yeah,
the
I mean,
first both of their first two series, which were tight defensive checking and whatnot, to this felt like a bit
this
of a
was
chances back and forth, run and gun,
a bit of a track meet. It
bit
was
of a
it was
track meet, and wow, it ended up coming down to a great shot. Getting again, I said pucks to the net, pucks to the net, just get
yeah.
pucks to the net, and
Well, and there were a few things that definitely stuck out to me in this game. Number one, and I texted you about this earlier. There is definitely something wrong with Uri Slafkovsky.
he
He's
wasn't winning puck
not.
battles.
He wasn't winning puck battles. He wasn't using his body. There's something going on with him. He
Who knows
wasn't.
what happened on that check in the last series? Like maybe there's something's gone wrong,
Well,
and then just
no,
the
but
wear
he
and tear
was
of the series. It could just be
maybe.
wear and tear of the series too. It's just that's two game seven series in a row for the Habs. They're going to have a rested Carolina Hurricanes, 11 days off. Carolina's only played 4 games since April 26th. Montreal's played 11.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be an energy difference in game one.
Oh,
The other
wow.
the other thing I would note is Jake Evans played a fantastic game. I don't think without that flyby past the puck that new goal goes in overtime. He was just in the right place
Yeah.
to just mess with UPK's vision a little bit, and he was all over the puck.
Yeah.
The two players that impressed me the most tonight were certainly none of the Canadians defensemen. The two guys who were most on my radar tonight were Evans and Demidov. I thought Demidov played a fantastic game, especially defensively. He tracked back with some fantastic back pressure on a number of Buffalo rushes, things I wasn't seeing from
Mhm.
a lot of the other forwards tonight. I think as the game went on, they started to show some fatigue, but
Yeah.
that kid was just flying.
Yeah. Anderson was impressive too the whole game. Driving the
Yeah,
net, controlling the puck down low, using the body. He was fantastic in this series. He's been fantastic all playoffs as
he's a
a
playoff guy. He's
playoff
definitely a
guy.
playoff guy. The guy I was most disappointed in tonight, which is very unfortunate because I've said this before, he's my favorite player on the team, Mike Matheson. Just turnover after turnover after turnover. And, there were a lot of good plays that he made where he managed to, spin away from on a forechecker and start to skate up the ice. That's what he does well. But man, when he has to make a clearing pass up the sideboards or into find the center in the middle as a safety valve, he just misses it all the
Yeah.
time now. Tonight, anyway, he doesn't
Yeah,
always
they
do that,
weren't
but
sharp on their passes coming out of their zone. We
he
talked
was
about it. It's just
turnover
the defense
machine.
were really terrible. But even Hudson, who has been fairly reliable on moving the puck, he made some really sloppy plays, losing the handle
Yeah.
on the puck. They got to clean that up, as we talked about. We'll get to the next series in a few minutes, but they got to clean that up moving forward.
Yeah. I bet the watch party at the Bell Center tonight was
Oh, it had to
something
be
to behold.
wild. Had to be wild. What a series. Look, I think the one thing we can take away from this series is hands off to Buffalo.
For
I
sure.
think we're going to see these two teams. They're the two youngest teams in the playoffs. We're going to see these two teams for the next 5 to 7 years battling it out in the playoffs, especially if they don't change the Eastern Comp, the way the playoffs are constructed. We're going to see these two teams battle it out for in the first or second round for years to come
I
because
think you may be
they're
right.
talented, they're young, they're locked in. Both have, Sabres are going to sign Tuck. They're stupid if they don't. Um, and these two teams are going to be perennial Eastern powerhouses for the next number of years.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody had any questions about Rasmus Dahlin being a legitimate Norris candidate, I think those were
Oh,
probably dispelled in
he
this
just
in this
skates with
series.
such ease, like he just effortless skating and uh, great
He's an
player. So
unbelievable player. Unbelievable.
absolutely,
And
he's
and Owen Power came into his own in this series
yep.
too.
Yeah, I thought he played a good game tonight, obviously, but I think that during the series he was up and down in terms of some sloppy play himself. But he's still young. This is his first
Yeah.
shot at it, so he'll grow into it. But you know what?
Yeah.
Hats off. We can't talk too much about this series because we got other things to talk about. But
We do.
congratulations,
We
Ryan.
do.
You get to
Thank
have
you.
heart palpitations for another 5 or 6, maybe 7 games. So I'll stick with you as long as we can here.
Well, from now on, I feel like we're playing with house money.
We are. We'll get to the our predictions after we talk about the other series. So, um, I would say stay in the East, but we've already talked about Carolina blowing out
Yeah, there's been
Philadelphia.
nothing to
So let's
say
not
about.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So we move over to the West. Let's talk about Avalanche and the Wild first. You know, that series had potential to go to seven, but we talked about it a number of times now, how the depth of the Avalanche is just shining through. You know, they took out the Wild, and that series could have easily gone seven. Taking them out in 5 games was impressive.
Very
You know, they've
impressive.
seemed to have found their stride. They're going on all cylinders. McKinnon is looking like a man possessed. You know, the only worry for them I have now is what's wrong with Makar. At the end of that series, he was looking like he got a little injured. He was the last
Hmm.
couple of games, he looked like he was dealing something. Hopefully, the week rest that they've gotten, we'll find out Wednesday, but hopefully the rest they've gotten, he's gotten healed up. But they're
Yeah.
rolling.
By the way, 70% Makar is still one of the best defensemen in the
No
league.
question. No
But
question.
the thing that, and I can't remember which analyst mentioned this, but it was a really, really good point. What the Avalanche have proved in these playoffs and obviously all season long is that they're that caliber of team that can beat you anyway. You want to goon it up with them, they'll beat you that way. You want to play a tight checking game, they'll beat you that way. You want to open it up, they'll crush you.
Yeah, they just
Um,
skate.
they've got players with the right mindset who can adapt to whatever the game throws at them and win on that basis. And
Yeah.
that's a rarity. It takes
Right.
those are the very 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 top teams.
Right. And they beat a
Um,
very good team in the Minnesota Wild with two amazing defensemen, Faber
and Hughes.
and Hughes. Just
I think they were.
fantastic.
I think they were hampered. You know, you gotta give the Wild a little bit of grace, especially because they were missing Eriksson Ek and
Mhm.
Brodin, especially Eriksson Ek, because
Oh,
without him,
that
they
changes
were.
their offensive makeup and their
Well,
lines.
forget that. I mean, it just leaves them without a real center.
Yeah.
I mean, they were for a team that's supposed to beat the Colorado Avalanche. They had nobody really that could match up with any of their centers.
Yeah.
Eriksson Ek was their best 200
Right.
foot center.
Right.
And then without Brodin, that's another member of their top four, and you can't lose any of your top 4D against Colorado.
No, no.
You have to
And
have them all, and they have to be at the top of their game.
yeah, but you've also got to think now too is that, and we talked a little bit about Dallas's and some of the things they've got to be worried about going forward. Now you got to look at the Wild. No question, Guerin has to be the GM of the year. He pulled off some great moves to get Hughes to solidify that team, and to take a run at Colorado, but they fell short and they fell in five.
Yeah,
And Colorado handled them mightily. So now what do they do? They've got to re-sign Hughes. Hughes has one more year on his deal. He's said he loves his experience in Minnesota. You know, hopefully they can re-sign him. But again, those are going to be two teams that are going to go after each other for the next number of years. And Minnesota has to find a way to add to that roster in order to get over the hump. And
yeah.
this roster, as
Well,
good as it was, wasn't good enough against that Colorado team.
no, but let me posit this. I don't think it's possible because I don't think they have the assets. But man, if Austin Matthews ends up being in play and a number one center is your area of biggest need, you'd have to think that they would be at the front of the line to try to make
Yeah,
an offer for him.
yeah.
But I don't think they have the assets. I mean,
Well, they have two great goaltenders, obviously. Wallstedt has shown as a rookie he can handle the load and he can handle it. The problem that just happened today, is Gustafson, just had has to have hip surgery, and they're not sure he's going to be
yeah,
ready for the beginning of the season because he could have been a trade piece or an asset that they could have traded,
right.
to get something in return. Not going to get Matthews for him, but you could have used him as a trade piece to move on from. But now with this injury and the hip for a goaltender is not a good injury.
Yeah.
And if they don't think he's going to be ready to start the season, then that's another. You're going to have to hold on to him for now, right? So that takes a bit of a bullet out of your chamber in terms of something you could have done in the offseason. So they got to figure it out. They got to sign Hughes. They got to figure out how they can bolster that top six or maybe even a bit on the bottom side so they can get over the hump and get past
Yeah,
Colorado.
they
And that's
need
not
it.
going to be easy.
They need to get better down the middle.
Yeah.
And look, as a Canadians fan and having suffered through the years where they were, a playoff team, but they weren't that good a playoff team
Right.
because they were really weak down the middle.
Right.
They were very thin. They never had, when Thomas Plekanec was their second line center, people were saying he should be a third line center. And
Right.
at one point, he might have even been the first line center.
Yeah.
Just you need stars and you need depth down the middle to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And the Florida Panthers proved that over and over and over again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Minnesota's they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a
Yep.
fantastic base, but they definitely have a
Yep.
lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and now let's move on to
Do we have to talk about that series?
the Vegas Marner Knights.
I tell you what, I'm getting a little tired, and this is all from my friends that I play hockey with, of all the people that have Toronto derangement syndrome. Because every time I go on my text chain, everybody's saying something about Toronto and oh, blah, 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 this Toronto, that, Toronto, that. Okay, stop with the Toronto derangement syndrome.
Toronto derangement
Derangement
syndrome.
syndrome. Okay, they moved on. Well, I've moved on from it. Look, I'll say it. Marner had a great series, but it begs the question, where was that when he was with Toronto? So everybody's now saying, "Oh, Toronto shouldn't have traded him." No, they should have traded him. Like they should
Yeah.
have traded him 2 years before that, or he should have waived his no trade clause when they asked him to twice a year ago. Um, but he wasn't performing. You couldn't keep those four together. They just weren't working.
No, you
They
couldn't
gave
run it
it
back. You
10
couldn't run it
years.
back.
They gave it 10 years and it didn't work out. The way he left is bad on Toronto management. I also blame um, Toronto management for, Dubas and Shanahan for signing all four or five of them to no trade clauses. And that's what's done them in, right?
Yeah.
So not being able to move these assets when they could have and had a chance, it's hurt them. So look at Marner had a great series. Now it also speaks to the team he's on. Not that Marner was playing with low-level players on Toronto, but Toronto was as deep as this Vegas team is. They had a bad year, didn't have a great year, but they are a deep, more talented team from top to bottom than the Leafs were. But Marner was
Oh,
playing with
okay.
one of
Well, on the bottom six.
the best centerman, American scorer of all time. So it wasn't like he wasn't playing with it
He was
garbage,
playing,
right?
yeah,
So,
or he was
but
playing
so
with Matthews
where
or
was that?
Tavares.
Where was that when he was in
Yeah.
Toronto, right? So that begs the question. That's in terms of the anger and the disappointment comes from the way he
Yeah.
left, him not allowing them to trade him when they had a chance to trade him, and then the disappointment in Dubas and Shanahan for signing all four of them to no trade clauses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, look, back to Vegas. You know, they've,
With
they've
Carter
really
Hart has played
pretty
way
well.
better than anybody expected,
Pretty
way better.
well.
So,
Yeah.
but I
But
will say in this series, he'll be chased at least once, if not twice.
yeah. Look, a big variable in this series too will be Mark Stone's health. I mean, can he
Yeah.
go and can he be effective?
Yeah.
Because I don't give Vegas much of a chance against Colorado, but without a healthy, effective Mark Stone, they've got zero chance in
Yeah.
my
No.
in my opinion.
He's a bit of the
But the
heartbeat too. He's the emotional heartbeat of that team.
Yeah, yeah, but and I think the Vegas forecheck clearly was wearing down Anaheim's D a little bit, especially the younger ones. I felt also that um, the they gave up some odd man rushes that they shouldn't have given up, much like the Canadians did, except the difference is that Buffalo didn't score on most of their
Yeah.
odd man rushes, and Vegas made you pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Look at Anaheim again, another young, good team. They are going to challenge for the division for years to come. They're going to make some additional changes. They'll bring in some more players. Um, you know,
they've got space too.
yeah,
They can
absolutely.
bring in some more talent.
Absolutely. They're another team that has the assets to bring in other pieces to help this team, and they got a great coach in
Yeah.
Quinn
Well, they have
Hooks.
choices to
They
make
got
in the
great
near term.
goaltending.
They've
They've
got they have choices to make in the near term as well, right? Because do they re-sign John Carlson?
Right.
That was a great deadline addition, but how much do you pay him and how long
Yeah.
do you commit to a defenseman of his
Yeah. Now
vintage? We'll use
they
that
need to
word.
keep some veteran presence there because the guy they're probably going to let loose is their captain in Gudis. I can't see them keeping Gudis around. They didn't use him in the playoffs.
No.
So why bother keeping him? Then maybe that gives you the room to bring in Carlson, keep him. He made comments after the series saying, I loved my time here. It was a lot of fun. This team's talented. Love the kids on this team. So maybe he's sort of signaling it. I'd like another run at it with them,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
again, but they, the Sharks are going to be in there next year. Oilers if they can rejig, but then you still got to get up to this level that Colorado, Dallas, and the Wild are at, and really the Wild and Colorado are just head and
Yeah.
shoulders above everybody in the West. So they're a big hill to climb, but they're making progress and they're looking good. I
Yeah.
had a lot of fun watching them play and Utah because I don't get to see a lot of them,
Hmm.
and I enjoyed their style and their youthful enthusiasm and their get up and go.
Yeah. Well, I think it also, if our listeners haven't figured it out by now, you are to be commended living on the East Coast for the amount of the Western Conference playoff games you've watched so
I've
far in
watched
this
a I've
series.
watched a ton of hockey this playoffs. I've
You are
watched
not
I
sleeping
haven't
much.
missed no, I haven't missed many. I haven't watched all of the games because I fall asleep during some of the late ones, but I have watched pieces or most of all of them. So as much as I can, I've watched. It's been a long couple of
Yeah.
weeks. I'm looking for a night off tomorrow.
Yeah, we're making note of the fact that you have not commented on the third period of any Western Conference game. So
I've seen more though. I've seen a lot. I've stayed awake and as much as I can. I'm not
it's
getting
been
any younger.
I'm impressed. I'm
I
impressed. For the
appreciate that.
record, I'm impressed.
Okay, so should we before we talk about it was a busy a week off the ice as well, but before we get there, let's do our predictions for the Eastern and
Oh,
Western
okay. Well,
final.
okay, fine.
Um,
Where do you want to start?
let's start in the West because I think we're probably both in agreement on this one.
Yeah.
Um, I've got Colorado. I want to say four because I want them to destroy the Knights. Sorry to my friends that are Knights fans, Sean. So I'll give you one game. They'll win one at home. I think it's five, and I think it's
Okay.
going to be ugly.
Now, I was on the fence of saying maybe even six. But because of, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute or two, because of that BS Tortorella move not showing up
Oh,
to the
we'll
media
talk about that. That's one
availability,
of the things we got to talk about.
then I'm going, I'm backing it back down to five, and I'm almost tempted to go with four. Screw the
But
Knights. They're on my shit list right now.
but let's talk about that now while we're talking about the series because I do
Okay.
think that this is going to affect them because it was a BS move. Like it's just stupid. Your travel back to Vegas wasn't that long of a trip. You're pissed off because of the suspension to one of your players, which was a suspensible hit. I don't care what you
Oh my
say.
God, it's you can't argue
Just
against
a
that one.
run at the guy. But it's torts being torts. Stupid. He's
Yeah.
cost them, forget about the 100K that he got. It's the second. They don't have many draft choices, and they just
Hmm.
cost them a second round draft choice. And the other problem this is going to create for them is that because he's did it and didn't address it in the
Hmm.
media conference, it's going to come up again and again and again, and it's going to be a talking point for the media and everybody. It's going to be a distraction for the team, and
Yep.
and I think it's going to cost them huge going into the next series, and it's going to be tough. But I think you're right. The other piece that's really going to hurt them is the health of Mark Stone. The heartbeat of
Yeah.
the team isn't ready to go or not at 100% because the Avs look healthy other than the banged up Makar is. The Avs look healthy and they look good.
And that Kadri acquisition
That's just the depth that we talked about, right?
looking better and better. Excuse me,
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
better and
So
better as time
I,
goes
I
on.
wanted to call four. I desperately wanted to call four, but I'll give
You're,
them one
you're,
game.
you're giving them five.
Colorado will sleep in game three or game four when they have a chance to sweep it. They'll fall asleep and they'll win it at home in game
All
five.
right, I'm gonna do it in five as well then.
Okay. Okay, on to Montreal,
And
Carolina.
Carolina. Now, does this one go to 5 games?
It has to because we're going to go to game five. It has to. Wait, I'll let you go first because it's your team.
This is my team. All right. I was concerned about the fact that they had to double shift Nick Suzuki all night tonight, and Arbor Jacki got like 2 minutes of ice time tonight, and Kirby Doc got like less than 10 minutes of ice time tonight and didn't play in the overtime at all. There are players on this team that Martin St. Louis does not trust right now.
Yeah.
And that makes me nervous, especially going into Carolina. And Carolina is a team that is fast and on top of you, and they are going to turn pucks over. And that is exactly where Montreal was struggling this entire series. I I have a feeling that's going to continue. The only reason why I can't say it's going to be a sweep is because I can't imagine any team winning 12 games in a row in the playoffs. And also, there's a little bit of magic around this Montreal
Wow,
team.
you're building this up to something because you want to.
There's a little bit of magic around this Montreal team. So I'm going to pick Carolina in 6.
There you go. There you go. Wow.
But by the way, I have to
You
pick
didn't pick your own
Carolina.
team. You didn't
Well, I
pick your own
can't
team.
because I picked Carolina at the beginning of the year, right? So I
Absolutely.
got to, I
I
can't.
get it. I get it. Look, I want to be with you as well. And I want to vote for the Montreal Canadiens, but if I if I'm going to pretend to, even if we're just doing this as two Jobs and be a hockey podcaster, in my right mind, seeing how they've played the last few weeks or the last this round and the style, not even how they play because they've played well, the style that they're playing right now, and that Carolina team's going to come out of the gun and they're just going to be like rockets shot at
Yeah.
them. And if the Habs get jammed in their own end like they did against Buffalo, they're going to make them pay the price because we said this when we talked about them beating the Flyers. They can now score goals. You know, they're not
Yeah.
going to beat them 2-1, 3-2. They're going to score. If they get
Yeah.
jammed in their own, they're going to score goals. So I wanted to call five, but I think we're going to be there for game five. They're going to win it and they'll lose in six. So I'm going Carolina in six as well.
6 as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
And
didn't I
and the
didn't
other
think you
reason
were going
for
to
it as
give the
well is
Canadians
actually
two wins.
the Habs had Carolina's number in the regular season and
Yeah, that
played them
doesn't mean
very
a
well. I know
thing.
it doesn't mean a thing, but I'll give Montreal. You know they're going to win one at home. They'll win one on the road, but it's going to be. I can't wait to see the Bell Center in Game Three and how ballistic they go to start that series. It's going to be a
Yeah.
wild series. The other thing I want to say, and I agree with you in terms of when you talked about Jack Eye not playing a lot, Doc not playing a lot, and they basically played Kapanen for what, 3 shifts the whole
Oh
game.
yeah, he barely
It
played. He
goes to
was
the
an
point that I wrote you
emergency.
before this game. Why is Gallagher not in there? If you're not going to play the young kid or Doc or someone, put an energy guy in there that's going to at least to go give you a 2 shifts a period that is going to be high energy, go knock some people on their butts, go in and create some noise in the offensive zone and give you a little bit of offensive push. I don't mean
Yep.
offensive push in terms of goal scoring chances, but in hitting some people, giving them some of that forward energy. St. Louis likes to talk about bounce forward. That's
Yeah.
that's what he does. He can do for that team, and I think he's got to go in there and he's got to be in there in game one.
I think yeah. Look, I don't know if he's in there game one. I know you're going to see him in the series. I think St. Louis, because the Canadians played them 3 times during the season, and I think St. Louis feels like he has the pulse of how these teams match up.
Yeah.
He probably already knows who he wants to put in game one, and we'll make adjustments from there. I think the guy we need to see more of is Jaden Struble. I think if we're not going to trust Arbor Jacki at this
I,
point, and
I
if
think
and if
Jack
and
Guy
if
needs to be in there. I think they need somebody to hit somebody, like
but
especially
is
against
that but
Carolina.
but
Put
is
Jack Guy
Carolina
in. Let
is Carolina that team? Like it's like you needed him in against
Well, they're a
Tampa.
strong forecheck team. They got a big body in Jack Guy back there. He can knock them back off them. I
Yeah, but
think
he
and
can
clear
also
the front of
turn
the
the puck
net.
over.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
hear
he
you.
was
I
taken
hear you.
out. That's
I
why he
hear you.
wasn't trusted.
I
He
hear you.
turns the puck over. Of
But
course,
why isn't
Drippy was
Struble
turning the
being in
puck
there
over.
then? Because he hadn't have a great series against
No, but
Tampa.
I don't know. I think he skates a little better. I think he's almost as strong as Jack. I feel like we need to see a little bit more of him.
Right.
Um,
I tell you,
you
I
know,
still say the player that they need to have in the lineup is as much as I hate him, is Gallagher.
Is
I
Gallagher.
think that you got to put your heartbeat guy in right from the beginning because you're going to need somebody to offset the energy and that forecheck that Carolina's going to come out with in game one. Just
Yeah.
run and gun. They're just going to come out you hard, and you need a guy
Yeah.
to push back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. Um,
So around the
okay.
league, where should we start? There was
Well,
so
we
much to
talked
talk
about
about this week.
Tortorella, so you tell me about the rest of it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened in Leafland this week, because Berube, not surprisingly, was relieved of his duties. And so was a bunch of other people in Toronto, including our assistant GM, Brad Pittam, who's actually been the cap genius of the team for the last number of years, being with the organization a lot. And if you believe
Cap genius, you say?
cap genius, or he's been the guy that's run the numbers and stuff. So if you believe some of the rumors out there is that he did interview for the GM job and apparently didn't go so well because
Mm,
he's the guy that knows where the bodies are buried in the numbers, and he's probably
right.
saying to Keith what he didn't want to hear. This isn't a quick flip. This is
Yeah.
a rebuild, and you've got to jettison some of these guys and start over. And he probably didn't want to hear that. And you know, it was gone. And you know
Yeah.
what? The assistant GM doesn't get the job. They bring in somebody new. The assistant GM generally goes, right? So it's not a big surprise.
Yeah.
It's not a huge surprise that Berube went. If you listen to some of what
It's a bigger
um
surprise that the Oilers aren't
yeah,
talking
we'll get
to
to we'll get to Knobloch in a second, but it's not a big surprise because if you listen to what Chayka and Sundin have said about some of the changes and how they view the team and how they have to play, Berube's not that coach. Berube's a big, methodical,
him.
bang them, try and grind them out. That wasn't the team. He tried to have this team play that style, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? They got great goaltending last year, okay goaltending this year because they weren't healthy.
Hmm.
And because of that, the warts of the issues of the way they were playing weren't covered up by great goaltending.
Yeah.
So, so it's not surprising that Berube's not back. So the choices, obviously Cassidy's out there. Cassidy, I don't think is the right coach either. I don't think he's necessarily the right coach for the if we're going to go younger, faster, more upbeat style. I don't think he's the right guy either. Then there's obviously Malhotra out there, Woodcroft, Knobloch's now available, but the guy that's getting a lot of talk is David Carlisle. Carly, is that how you pronounce his last name? The Denver University coach
Oh, wow. That'd be
um,
interesting.
is a guy that they've been talking a lot because he's won uh, the last 2 years. The Denver's won
Yeah. Well, they
the
won this year when they
they
weren't
won this year.
supposed
I think
to.
they've won, yeah, 2 years ago. So they've won. He's won two national championships, and is all means a great coach. So he could be a guy, a young new face to the regime. Malhotra's been in Toronto, so he knows the players, he knows the organization. That could be an interesting play as well. But I think it's going to be somebody that's new, that doesn't necessarily have head coaching in the NHL experience, and we'll see what happens. But
Well, look,
um,
um, Marty was coaching Pee Wee when the
yeah,
Canadians hired him. So sometimes you got to go off the map. Marty,
absolutely.
I don't think anybody can argue, is at least a top 10, if not a
Yep.
top five coach in the NHL right now.
Yep.
So take a chance on
Yeah,
somebody with some new
absolutely.
ideas. With
Absolutely.
some new
And we'll
ideas.
see what happens. So, and then we get to Edmonton and the debacle that has been there. Knobloch gone. And
I mean, if you're trying to prove to Connor McDavid that your team is heading in the right direction and you have people in charge that know what they're doing, to have it leak out that they were trying to get permission to talk to Cassidy while Knobloch was still employed. I mean,
it's
if I'm
just
Connor McDavid, I'm
crazy.
like, what is this clown show going on
This
here?
is an absolutely clown show going on. And by the way, Knobloch signed a 3-year extension last year that doesn't kick in till this fall. He didn't even make it to his extension. You know, he gets to two finals, then out in year one, and he's gone. Like, wow. Like, okay, they obviously their defensive woes, and if Stan Bowman believes this is the team, then Stan Bowman needs to have his head checked because that
Yeah.
team, like, I don't know how Stan Bowman still has a job. Daryl Katz apparently had a lot of say in Knobloch going, and is a very vocal owner from all accounts, and if you believe to the experts out
Yeah, he's
there.
kind of like the Jerry Jones of hockey a little
Yeah,
bit.
so but then
But what I would say about
how do you keep Bowman? He made debacle of the goaltending situation. Wasn't he the one that was there when they let Holloway and Broberg go and sign a free
yes,
agent?
yes.
So he's just bobbled this team from the beginning. Like I don't know how you stick around.
Well, I mean, but think about it this way: Knobloch was Bowman's hire, and Bowman was Katz's hire. And Katz, maybe his ego got in the way here and says, "I'm not going to fire the. It can't be my fault. I couldn't have made a bad decision. It must have been Bowman's decision." That said, I don't think Bowman has a very long leash at this point.
Oh,
Even if he makes it to the draft, I don't think. I honestly don't know
well,
that
yeah,
that's settled
but
yet.
if you're going to fire him, you got to fire. Why wouldn't you just let them both go at the same time? Were you going to let Bowman bring in the next
Um,
coach? If you're going to get rid of him, you're going to let him bring in the coach.
yeah, yeah, that's a fair
So,
point. Or maybe look, that can. Who knows what happens in the next couple of days
but
before they hire a coach?
the interesting thing there now is apparently they're talking to Berube.
I know,
Like,
and that's what I mentioned before. To me, like, and as you said,
he makes
he's
no
not
sense.
the
And
right coach for that
no,
style of team.
again, like
It
Connor
makes no
McDavid's going
sense.
to walk in the room with him and he's going to go, I want you to play down deep, low in your own end and take the body. Yeah, go to hell. I'm going skating the other direction.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's just not a, I love Berube. I thought he was a great coach and he's obviously wonderful. And apparently the room did love him, but he's not the coach for Edmonton.
No,
Just not a
look,
chance.
Edmonton is a team that needs. Well, first of all, they need a lot of players, but they also need a coach with fresh ideas because
Yes.
you've got a very unique situation there with two of the top five players in the game on the same team,
Yeah.
plus the most confounding defenseman on the planet. You know, a guy who is an offensive dynamo,
And
but
can't figure out
but
his own end to save his
can't
life.
figure it. Yeah, can't figure it. So how do you utilize a player like that most effectively? So I think you need a really creative, fresh ideas type of coach there.
Yeah.
Maybe they should hire the guy from DU. Who knows?
Right.
But
I just don't know if Bowman believes that the team he's assembled this past year, for the most part, yeah, he'll bring in a couple. Again, his comments after the season saying, I don't see a ton of changes, maybe a couple here and there. I just don't see how this team gets over the hump of Colorado, Minnesota,
yeah,
and now some of these other younger teams. I just don't see them getting over the hump unless there's some real change there, especially in net and on the
yeah,
point in defense and the
yeah,
depth. They lost their heart. You heard both um, um, McDavid and Draisaitl say it after the season. We lost our heartbeat guys.
yeah,
We lost these guys. Now we got to get them back, or get
yeah.
somebody back that's
Get
those
somebody
that
back.
ilk.
Yeah. So we
Then
got time. We've got time for one more topic, I think. And
one more
so,
topic. What do you
and
want to talk? Want to talk
so
about Team Canada and Celebrini?
I was gonna say this. I would love to close on the Celebrini Crosby passing of the torch. I think that's a really nice way to finish this off. So why don't you tell everybody what happened this week? It happened over the course of a few days.
Yeah, it was. I think it was
Um,
a bit of a shock that obviously just before the World Hockey Championships started, Macklin Celebrini was named captain of Team Canada, which was a bit of a passing of the torch because John Tavares and O'Reilly were named the assistant captains. And then the next day, I guess Sidney Crosby decided he was healthy enough and decided to join the team at the Worlds. And obviously, from that, he's been captain Canada for what now, 15 years. He's been the captain of every major tournament that Team Canada has played, that he's been available to play at. They've won all of them, but
yeah, let's
last
not go
year's
there.
Worlds and this last year's Olympics. But he's been Captain Canada and clearly their best player, and he's having a whale of a tournament already in Switzerland. But obviously the media clombed onto it right away, going, "What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Who's going to wear the C? Is Celebrini going to give him the C? Is he going to be? What's going to happen?" And and lo and behold, Sydney was Sydney. He goes, look, it doesn't mean that much to me. I'm happy to have him as the captain. Apparently, him and Macklin Celebrini had a conversation, and all the leaders of the team had a meeting. Celebrini tried to give Sydney the C, and Sydney refused and said, "No, it's your time. You're the captain."
He is a
I'll take an
class
A.
individual.
And
He
now
is
they're shifting the A around between Tavares and O'Reilly. So
okay.
Sydney's always wearing an A, Celebrini's wearing the C, and
they're unbeaten.
and they're unbeaten. And it's funny because Celebrini and Crosby are playing with Martone. So Sydney at 38 is playing with two 19-year-olds, and they're having a whale of a tournament. They are the number one line, and they are scoring and some passing plays. It's been pretty incredible to watch. I watched today's game against Denmark, and it was a joy to watch those three playing together. It's pretty
Isn't it
fun.
crazy that his line mates' ages added together are his age?
Yeah, it's incredible. But they both idolize him, right? So
Yeah.
it's just incredible. But so it's so much fun. But you know what? Let's move on. And let's try and close this out a little bit. Obviously, Ryan, you got a couple days here to
I got a couple
catch
days.
your
I got
breath,
to catch my breath, get the blood pressure
get
back
the blood
down.
pressure going.
It's
We'll get a
about
little warm up with
Yeah,
Colorado, the Knights on Wednesday
That's right.
before Montreal gets going with Carolina on Thursday, which means you're going to get another Saturday game.
Yeah, like tonight it was like 167 over 120, and I'm like, I got to get it down.
But I hope they do make a few lineup changes. I hope to see Gallagher in there. And let's get it on. This is going to be a fun Eastern and Western Conference final. I think it's actually going to be some fun hockey, even though I think it's going to be relatively quick. But I'll see you in Carolina next Friday.
Okay, I'm doing my best.
On the Aiming 5-0 podcast. We'll see you next week, Ryan. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.